This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
The real difference between an innovator and a wannabe is the doing it part. JCPenney, actually whose very first store is just down the street from me here in Colorado, is famous for saying, "It is always the start that requires the greatest effort." I can't tell you how many innovators I run into who've got the idea, they've written it down, they're working on the notebook, but it's the hardest thing of just stepping out and actually doing it. I'm Phil McKinney, and you're listening to Killer Innovations. Our guest today is Paul Zane Pilzer, who is an economist, an author of multiple New York Times bestsellers, last count I think something like 11 books, professor, serial entrepreneur, founding 6 companies, and someone who I got introduced to, we've had long conversations with regards to his interest in education. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, give the listeners kind of the 60-second commercial about you. How do you introduce yourself when you run into somebody at a dinner party that you haven't met before? How do you describe yourself?
Well, I usually describe myself with the one word I hope that sits on my tombstone one day, and that's teacher. I teach people things, and everything else seems to fall in regarding teaching. And, of course, there's doing and lots of stuff, but ultimately I teach people.
Well, I think, if you when I looked back upon your career, you've covered kind of a wide range of activities. You were, an academic. You finished your MBA by the time you were 22. You've been a professor, taught for many, many years. And then you've gone off and you've written a number of books. So take us back a little bit. In your early academic days, give us some context. You finished your MBA at 22, and then what happened next for you?
I generally learned very quickly that whenever I was an unhappy customer, there was a business opportunity. There were probably other unhappy customers. And I could get mad, like most unhappy customers do, or I could get very rich and try to fix the world by trying to develop another business to develop that product. And from that, from healthcare to education, I built businesses, some of them about $1.5 billion market cap now, that really focus on making happy customers. And that's what I see as fixing the world. Separately, I like to talk about what I do, promote what I do. That comes down to writing books. I disappear every few years. It seems like I didn't plan it that way, but I've had very good luck writing 11 books. And then I've spent about a third to half my life in public policy. I had the great fortune of joining the Reagan administration in the 80s, and I've been connected with heads of state, different people, mainly related to the books and being an economist around the world. And again, what I really do for all the people I work with, from CEOs to heads of state, I teach them something. I can still hear President Reagan, explain this to me. And then you find you really don't know it, so you can explain it to somebody who very innocently will say, explain it. And the ultimate person you want to teach it to is a K-8 student. When you can explain what you do, or what you're trying to do to a 5 to 12-year-old, you understand.
That actually brings up an interesting point. I've run into a couple of entrepreneurs out in Silicon Valley who've taken the task of literally hiring kindergarten teachers as an advisor when they're preparing their pitch. And if they can't explain it to a kindergarten teacher, who creates constantly creating materials for the younger K through 12 process, then once you can achieve that, then you can actually, a VC can actually understand what you're saying. I don't know what that says about venture capitalists, though.
No, it's really anything. If you're going to move the world, you've got to be able to, in less than 10 seconds, explain what you do and why they need it.
So, Paul, one thing you and I didn't get a chance to talk about this, and I've always wanted to ask you this question, is that you've kind of got this economic perspective that advances in technology creates a world of unlimited physical resources, which is kind of counterintuitive for a lot of people out there, albeit I come from a tech sector and get exactly what you're saying. But talk me through a little bit of what that view is of technology and what its role is as far as creating this unlimited resources versus kind of some people believe there's a win-loss or zero-sum game out there.
Yeah, and very much the same as my regular pattern. When I was first introduced to the zero-sum game, I got upset. I was the youngest MBA in history at the time at Wharton Business School. I was 20 years old getting my MBA, and I walked into macroeconomics class, and they told me, welcome to macroeconomics. What is economics? Economics is the study of scarcity. There's a limited supply out there of land, in those days fuel, fresh water, and how we divide it up among ourselves, be it communism, capitalism, socialism, or any other ism, is the study of economics. And I said, whoa, I don't want to be here at Wharton. I got the wrong school. The world I know, when you create something, you add value. You make more food. You make more land by building high-rises on it where there used to be flat farms. We increase the value of everything. And this professor, who later won the Nobel Prize, by the way, for economics, is telling me that it's all about scarcity. That led me on a quest to say, you're wrong, and I wrote a book called Unlimited Wealth. 15 years later, it took me. I had to go through the Reagan administration, 5 years at Citibank, and teaching at NYU for almost 20 years. And finally, I think I got it right in 91 when I wrote a book whose central equation is wealth for the individual or society equals physical resources, how much land you have, how much water, how much oil, times technology. W equals PT. But for most people, they go to school, figure out, get a technology, learn a degree, and W, wealth, equals physical resources times technology. Their T is then constant. They learn something and try to do it all their life. And that's the problem. Wealth equals physical resources times technology, but in history, technology was a constant. For most individuals who go to school, when people tell them, what are you going to be when you grow up, they pick something, they learn the technology and don't learn anything new. And I wrote this book explaining why our abundant economy is growing so fast and how we've learned how to manage technology and how W equals P times T, wealth equals physical resources times technology, but you can improve your technology in your lifetime. And when I wrote this, the book was pretty earth-shattering. There were 3 Larry King Live TV shows. One of the first people I heard on the phone called me up directly with Sam Walton, who's now on the back cover of the book. And from that, I've written a number of books, 11 books, on a lot of different topics, but ultimately I'm probably known for wealth equals physical resources times technology, and we as governments and we as individuals need more T, technology, not more physical resources.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, it kind of feeds into one of your other books, which was The Next Millionaires, where you talk about the number of millionaires doubles every decade. And you really kind of a little bit of a pushing the point that how ordinary people can become one of them.
Well, that's pretty much just focusing on what most people want out of any type of knowledge. Most people are sort of stuck at a stage of I need to get more money in a good way, and money is a good scorecard. And when they understand how the economy works, they think, gee, I'm going to get money not by taking it from someone else. That's tough to do. I'm going to get more money by creating value that wasn't there before. I don't want more gasoline or barrels of oil. I want to go from 20 miles a gallon to 40 miles a gallon with the same amount of oil, and I get twice the driving. And once you start to understand that you individually and you as society wants more technology, things fall into place.
Yeah, hey, Paul, that's great. This is going to lead right into our second segment. Don't go anywhere. Stay right where you're at. I'm Phil McKinney, and you're listening to Killer Innovations.
Biz Talk Radio. This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a big Walt Disney fan. And when it comes to preparing the next generation, I just love this quote from Walt, which was, "It's a mistake not to give people a chance to learn to depend on themselves while they are young." Today's topic, we're talking about education and preparing youth for the next generation for the competitive workplace that's out there. And we have Paul Zane Pilzer on the phone with us, joining us for this segment. If you've listened to the last segment, you heard a little bit about Paul's background. But what I want to concentrate in this segment, Paul, is for you to share with me and the listeners here what you're working on specifically on how to prepare the kids for the future, given the work that you're doing with some of your new businesses.
Well, that pretty much became like all my other businesses. I was an unhappy customer. I have 4 children that are currently in 9th, 8th, 7th, and 6th grade. My wife and I are both academics. I taught gifted students for 21 years at NYU, and I spend my life traveling around the world doing graduation speeches and keynotes, all at educational institutions. So education is more than my hobby. And I had 4 kids. I enrolled them in public school. I tried 1 or 2 in private schools, and I got very, very frustrated. The biggest frustration I had was no audit trail. I'd like to know how my children are doing daily. It couldn't take more than 20 seconds to ask a child walking in the door who was Abraham Lincoln, and at 3 p.m. when they walk out the door, they pass by an iPad, who was Abraham Lincoln. And maybe you'd find out that they're not learning anything about Abraham Lincoln or whatever the lesson plan is. So just on knowing what was going on in schools, I got frustrated. That led me to look closer at the curriculum. And bit by bit, I realized, wow, are we in trouble or wasting our time in K-8 education, which really is the foundation of everyone's learning. But I didn't just do it to go complain. I did it to say, what can I do to fix it? And that's where I started Zaniac Learning. And Zaniac is growing. We were going to do 1 store a month this year, new stores. We're opening in Manhattan in the next 3 weeks, and we'll be doing about 2 stores a month and should be up to 10 stores a month next year. And Zaniac's the first model I've done that won't just, quote, make me more money, because I don't need to make more money, my businesses have done well, but has the chance to change education as we know it literally overnight in the next few years in the United States and overseas. And that's what I'm working on.
Paul, explain to us what Zaniac is. So what is it that you're doing, and why is it so different from everything else you've run across?
Well, Zaniac first is killer curriculum. We build and write all our own curriculum. So the first curriculum we wrote was K-8 math. And we built a 12,000 problem math database, and we create a custom workbook and textbook for each child. We measure the 70 concepts in the Common Core math. We then show how your child knows before we touch them for free. We'll tell you how your child does in each concept of Common Core math, and how other children do in the state, the zip code, the country, the world. Then we press a button and print a 100-page workbook for the next 6 weeks for just problems for your child, because we lose both ends of the bell curve in math. So that was just our math curriculum, and we measure everything with handwriting. Students do handwriting, we scan the writing, and we deliver unbelievable reporting. So first we built Zane Math. That was our curriculum. Very quickly we noticed we could take a 2nd grader right up to 8th grade math in 2 years or 1 year. And it's not that we're so good, it's how little is actually taught in elementary school math. So we started adding subjects like computer programming, 3D printing, computer-based, game-based learning, even fashion design, and killer robotics. And when we added all these different courses, parents started flocking. Now, what does a Zaniac look like? It's like Disneyland for education. You walk in and you see 50 to 96 brand new silver chairs, brand new iMacs, 6 all-glass classrooms, high ceiling, and it's hip and fun. And the kid rides by and goes, I want to go in there, Mom. And when you go in there, they teach you math, robotics, 3D printing, computer programming, and you just soar. So we found an environment that's a physical environment called a Zaniac Learning Center. We have campuses from coast to coast. And once you walk in there, you go, this is what school should be. But we don't compete with the school, because if you compete with the school in this country, you're in a big political mess. We teach what the school doesn't teach. We teach robotics, 3D printing, Minecraft, game-based learning. And when you're done with our courses, you're saying, Mom, I need to get back to school and learn more math, because I need more math so I can do my fashion design better, or my 3D printing, or my computer programming. And Zaniac, of course, is so much more. When we think of after-school activities from karate to soccer, they're wonderful. I have my kids enrolled in all these things, but frankly, they don't want to do a physical activity every day. They want to do something to supplement their education that they're really excited about, and that is STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math at a Zaniac. So you need to see ZaniacLearning.com on the web, or better yet, of course, walk into a Zaniac, and that's what's taking off. We control the environment. We've made a place children want want to go, and the only time they're unhappy is when mom comes to pick them up after the hour and a half or 2 hours is over, and they can come every day, they can come multiple times a week, and it changes their whole view of education. When we open,
hey, Paul, one of the things that I think that I found really interesting when you and I talked was who teaches who. Who do you bring these kids into the event, you're running them through a curriculum, but also you find kids that are kind of having in the common levels or areas, but who teaches them?
I started when I asked my kid, why are you friends with this kid versus that kid? Why don't you become friends with Phil's kid? And they go, well, this kid taught me something. And I found that my children gravitate to become friends with people who teach them things or they teach things to. And usually that only happens on the playground. At Zaniac, the 7-year-old masters the math concept and turns around a whiteboard in a 6-room, all-glass classroom and starts writing on the whiteboard, teaching the other kid next to him. The instructors are near peers. The best real teacher for an 8-year-old is an 18-year-old. So all of our instructors are high school honor students or maybe college undergrads, and that's because they won't quit once they're high school honor students and work for us. They always want to stay a few years. And they're teaching on a very scripted model where it's measured before every class what the 8-year-old student knows. Then we measure an hour and a half later what the 8-year-old student learned. And we rank the instructors by how much their children learned. And they get very excited about improving it. So the core of Zaniac is that the best teacher is a peer. The second or almost as good teacher is a near peer. That's a 16, 17, 18-year-old for a 6, 7, and 8-year-old. Now, you can't just throw an 18-year-old in a room and say, teach math. Everything is very scripted, follows exact lesson plans, and it's using a lot of technology. It's taught live, but as I'm teaching, I press a button, and there's a full screen, big screen behind me that comes on with the intro video, then I talk about it, then I get the kids to stand up and start using the whiteboards.
And so, I just find this model impressive. One of the other things you shared with me was actually getting the kids to go after and try, maybe even taking on college entrance exams. We've got just a couple of minutes here before we have to wrap up. But talk a little bit about that, about getting the kids over some of the test anxieties for entrance exams.
Well, our kids are kindergarten to 8th grade, so they're not applying to college. But when we talk to parents, they say, wow, I wish you could have helped out his older brother or his older sister with the SAT exam. So what we did is we wrote a gamified SAT program, which is a lot of fun. And we're teaching it to 6 to 12-year-olds, and they can use the SAT to get into Johns Hopkins and the advanced kid programs. But what they really do is they master the SAT as some kind of fun game to beat, because they learn how to beat it on games. And we teach them vocabulary and teach them the math, and we can get them years ahead. Then when they're in high school, and they should be studying and learning things in high school and growing up and going through puberty, they're not so worried about the SAT, because that's something they learned back at age 7, 8, 9, 10 on a leisurely basis and had a lot of fun doing the SAT. Plus, it's killer when you see 10 Zaniac 11-year-olds walk into a big room with 1,000 high school students to take the SAT or ACT exam. We've made it fun for them years in advance and taken the pressure out.
I don't know if I could have survived that intimidation having a 11-year-old sitting next to me while I was taking my entrance exams back when I was applying to college.
Ultimately, we do this at a fraction of a Princeton Review, a Kaplan, or more importantly, what a public school pays. That's where we're using technology, and we're giving great opportunities to high school honor students to teach.
So, Paul, if people want to follow you and keep track of what you're doing, what's the best way for them to find you?
I would say my side, I'd like you to go to paulzapilzer.com, but Wikipedia is probably the best thing because it not only includes my economic theories and things I try to put up there, which usually get taken down, it includes thousands of other people who collaborate, who don't like my books or are challenged by them. So I always recommend Wikipedia is probably the best place to start to really follow somebody positive and negative in the world today.
And if they want to see what's going on over at Zaniac, what's the web address for Zaniac?
ZaniacLearning.com. We're the only Zaniac. All you have to do is Google Zaniac, Z-A-N-I-A-C, and you'll see, and the website ZaniacLearning.com, or there'll be a Zaniac soon in your town. So if you're in a major city, within a year now, we'll have a Zaniac. Lots of places.
Perfect. Paul, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you coming in. And for listeners, I hope that opened your eyes a little bit. When we come back, I've got a killer question to challenge you with. I'm Phil McKinney, and this is Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
Talk Radio.